Hello, I will say something about the commodification of higher education and some of the things that we can use to adjust to or counteract that, depending on where you stand on the issue. I will start with looking through some numbers on the development of MOOC's massive open online courseware from the main providers FutureLearn, from the Open University of Great Britain, of edX from MIT and Harvard, and Coursera from Stanford. All these started around 2011, 2012. Coursera has now turned commercial and is, as we can see, one of the biggest providers in number of online courses, while edX has also had reasonable growth in the international market. This is to a larger degree driven by developments during the pandemic in 2020 and 2021. But edX, instead of going commercial, have been sold to a commercial company, but then split out the course, the software foundation, OpenEdX, which is now non-profit in a unit called TCRIL. Which is sort of continuation of the edX initiative, but without the course portfolio. So there are changes in this space. And here we have the number of students that has been enrolled on these courses, and you see a similar large growth here in 2020 and 2021, where Coursera is approaching 100,000 students, and there's a potential there for, depending on how you calculate, from 2 to 300 million or up to 1 billion students worldwide. Now, we should also bring into account the development in China, which is sort of, to some extent, walled off from this development, with Swetangex, which is a big provider, but there are a huge number of providers in China as well. And my guess would be that they will re-enter the international scene with courses, not only in Chinese, but also English language courses eventually. UNESCO has decided to go for OpenEdX. They have started to develop some courses. Here's a typical example: Introduction to Groundwater Governance, and other issues that are of importance for UNESCO. And that is relevant in many contexts, particularly when we do international cooperation. But there's also been a slowdown in terms of numbers. So in the number new registered users was like 31 million in Coursera in 2020, it's gone down to 21 million in 2021 because campus opened again. And now there's a new closure going on in the winter of 2021-22, so we will see how that develops. But another important development is that these courses are not only sort of shorter, degree-oriented online training. We also have different kinds of degree-oriented offerings called different things: specializations, micro-credentials, academic certificate, and so on and so forth, from these three providers. And they enter into collaboration with universities, formal universities, accredited universities, like in this case, the Macquarie Business School, for a global Master of Business Administration. And you can take Coursera courses for the full degree, or you can take some of the courses and then eventually use them towards the full degree. These are for payable. You pay a hefty sum to take these courses. But there's a tendency now that you can take online courses and use them in registered and accredited universities. Now, looking at the offerings from Bokhuset or Bokskapet in Oslo Metropolitan University, we have developed like 4 titles for the PISA model, and the entry course level is here for like 50 hours of work. But then we have developed a step 2 for more experienced people, a step 3 for running the Open edX system installation and configuration, and a level 4 for leaders of these kind of processes. Now, so we are looking at a situation where we sort of combine more titles together for micro credentials of one sort of the other, depending on the naming, and that can be used towards a formal degree. That is a strong tendency. You have other entrants like Khan Academy, who wants to make mastery learning mainstream. That is built on a philosophy that students should learn something, and they should not progress to the next level until they have mastered the previous step. So it's not like time-based, it's knowledge-based, it's achievement-based, the progression. That is a way of redefining how schools are organized. But we have other important developments as well. Pearson, which is one of the biggest publishing houses in the world, they have made 1,500 of their textbooks available in digital format. And you can pay one sum a month or a year, like $10 a month, and you have access to all these courses. So if you are sort of a focused students who want to cover a lot of material, of course you can get a very cheap access to these documents, but probably it's a business invention to counteract the tendency for students to buy a book and then resell it as a used book later on. So there's some evaluation and some meditation behind this. Coursera, they have also a similar Netflix kind of offering, where you can have access to 3,000 courses for a fixed subscription price. IBM and Microsoft are similarly developing huge organization of these kind of courses. IBM are talking about 30 million people by the year 2030. Microsoft is talking about 25 million people before 2030. And you have others like Udemy. They sell, for instance, access during the Black Friday sale, where it's cheap to get into the to register. And we might assume that over time there will be more providers, and then the price point will be reduced. It's like with streaming today. When I compare prices in Norway for month subscription to Netflix with 4 screens, that means that my family can have watch each film independently of the others. And the price of that is like one single ticket to the movies and half the price of a ticket to the theater. And the theater is heavily subsidized. So if you pay the full price, it would be 10 times as much. So theaters and movie theaters haven't disappeared, but they have become playing a different role than they had before the streaming revolution, so to speak. And we will see some of the similar logic playing out with the online teaching material. When there's a huge amount of titles out there, the price for having access will go down because the titles are already there, and it doesn't cost the businesses anything to add another student. Another entrant is Canvas Instructure, which started as a learning management system. But they have also developed what they call the catalog, where people can sell their courses online. So all these things point in the direction of a commodification of a marketplace for these kind of online titles. And also they expand, like Instructure has acquired a Kimono, which is a system to integrate different kind of computer systems that are relevant for the university, for the campus, registration of students, economics, budgeting, etc., etc. So we get this kind of wall-to-wall integration of digital system for the university, provided by these kind of large conglomerates that have many universities as their clients. So kind of giga university. Another important development, which we have not seen the consequences of yet, is the development of AI, artificial intelligence. And here's an example from the Microsoft OpenAI. That was a company, open source company, and Microsoft paid $1 billion to get into integrate with them, and with the requirement that the solution should run on Microsoft infrastructure. And now they have launched their open access to the API for this GPT, Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is an AI system for creating text, automated text generation that has similarities to text that is made by people. So you might use some of these applications. The number is increasing very rapidly to create study notes, to create interview questions within a problem domain, to have a chat. And this is based on the GPT-3 engine having scored the internet for text, including the entire Wikipedia, and then chopped it up in small chunks of 4-letter sequences, and then have statistical models to calculate what is the most likely next quadruple next letter combination if you have start with one and then expand on that, going back and forth, so that you use the embedded knowledge in most of the text available on the internet to guess what would be a reasonable next development of written text. It is not like a creative mind, but it's good enough to create like sort of normative structures that an experienced teacher might use to create more lively and more precise documents and texts. A small example is available in Microsoft PowerPoint at this time. If you have some picture elements, and here I made a very simple example, the system will generate various kinds of layouts. So that is derived from, they are derived from common ways of doing that. And we will see more of these things, that the artificial intelligence systems, they base themselves on huge amount of patterns that are available out there and generate new suggestions within the space that is provided by those existing patterns. Here's another example where you can you can write something about your topic, and then you can write a stem, a start, and then the system generates the text to expand on that. This sort of points to a future, and we are, as I said just in the beginning, but where authorship for creating text, creating assignments, creating tests, and so on and so forth, and also to answer problems on the student side is something, well, eventually you will have that available on your phone, which you can as a playground today, but within not so long time, that will be more serious. And the question is, well, what's going to happen with the university as a system, the university structure, when you prolong these developments some years? And here is a sort of 4 scenarios from OECD. Either that the current system is prolonged, institutionalized as before, but with new technology foundation. You might have a privatization of the whole system, as I'm sort of indicating now, that the businesses will take over what public universities did before. You might have networks between different kinds of agents, both public universities, private entities, and other businesses and workplace, and they become a more sort of mesh, a network, or the university sector and formal education will sort of fade away, so it becomes more integrated in private lives and in work life, but not separate as institutions. These are the four alternatives that is put forward by OECD, and maybe the future have a little bit of everything. But there's another issue at play here, and that is a consequence of the commodification and the turn to the market, namely that there's a development, a crisis in the moral backbone of the academic institution, that teachers start to get fed up with too low salaries and not so interested students. So low morale of professors and college leaders, a sense of being fed up, as you can sort of extract from the social media discourse. And in some countries like United States and other places, that more and more of the teaching is done by lower paid adjuncts that on short-term contracts, while less and less professors are there on the security of tenure. And also that characteristics of the job fades away, the sort of intellectually driven interest for knowledge for its own sake and for its use value is replaced by the sale value. So it becomes a more service-oriented business with students as customers, and this is a challenge. So how can we break out of that? Here are 3 points. I think that a strategic university leadership would focus on developing the lecturers' literary, documentary, and information competencies, information handling, information knowledge. They would increase productivity, which is a requirement in order to maintain good salaries, by establishing both social and technical infrastructures that support text work and knowledge work, and also to empower the academics in a system that has grown more and more complex and top-heavy. Combining these three, you might reinvent the university for the digital age, in my view. Okay, so that is something that one might engage in. And here I take some example of the lecture notes that people write, but transferring them to this kind of online MOOCs and textual materials. So lecture notes, recording, audio, video, and then develop tests and assignments for online consumption or online work with the students that are sort of core textual components in this change. And here's an example of a web page, and these online materials contain a number of web pages with text, with some interactive learning objects, with more text, with a video, and the still image, and so on and so forth. And from that, we can extract sort of core components. This is not supposed to be a replica of the printed textbook. That's a waste of time. We need to create something that is different, more lively, more engaging, and put the students' thinking and knowledge, operational ability on the table for testing and for developing. So interactive learning objects, some interactive assignments, and also linked to operations in the practical field. So on the one hand, when knowledge becomes a commodity, the importance of education will turn more to the operational level and high-level competencies in executing work challenges. And then we build the infrastructure with various servers and so on and so forth, and software that might support the development and maintenance of these web pages or whole titles. And in some of our work, we have been looking at what kind of texts are these pages composed of. We have the HTML, we have the videos, the audios, the still images, the interactive learning objects, which are kind of programmed in HTML5 or in Python or any other programming language, and the paratext that points out to the bigger internet. So we take into consideration when we evaluate this that it is common now to work in the multimedia field. I use the example of TikTok, which has close to 1 billion users in 2021, one of the largest software platforms in the world. And they are, of course, combining video, sound, and to some extent pictures. So there are many people who get used to acting and expressing themselves using these media. And then finally, the paratext, which is the kind of text that is enclosed in the digital learning resource, the new type of textbook, not printed, but it points out to and prepares for the qualified and the limited use of resources that are out there, so that it's both a closure from the internet, at the same time an awareness of the internet and pointers and directions on how students can use the internet. Combining all these things, I think that teachers might play a new and much more significant role in the future of education, but within the perspective that the individual institutions to a larger degree will collaborate with others nationally and globally. Thanks for your attention.